Hey everyone, this is Megan again. I am going to do a follow-up video to my last video, which was my first video, about my mother's death. And this is going to be about her estate. Now, I would like to preface this by saying that not every state is going to have the same laws. Not every estate is going to be the same. So, use this information as you need. Keep in mind that it may not apply to you and may not apply to your cases. This video is basically to help anyone who's in my situation where you are the executor of an estate of a parent. This is to help you kind of get an idea of where you should start, I guess I should say. So yeah, that's the preface, and we're gonna start. So the first thing that I did, literally the night after my mom passed away, I was kind of lucky and blessed in that my mother was very well known, very well loved. She had a lot of friends, and her best friend from the Eastern Shore had drove in to the hospital before she passed. And she spent about 4 days with me until my older brother, came into town. My older brother is not well mentally, so in my mother's will, I was made the executor of her estate. I will say this, also really quickly, if you haven't watched my previous video about what led up to her passing, I will link that down below. Definitely check that out. It's got some great information in it. But before my mother passed, she showed me her will that she had written out, and in Virginia, a handwritten will is law-binding. I don't know. It's legal. The caveat to that is you have to have, it either needs to be notarized or it needs to have 2 witnesses. And those 2 witnesses, well, at least in Virginia, have to be 2 people who are not stated in the will as beneficiaries. So before her initial surgery that led up to everything, she showed me where the will was. She showed me where all the paperwork was. She made me the beneficiary on her 403B account. So yeah, so she prepared, and my mother was absolutely excellent at keeping a record of everything. I literally have both marriage certificates from both of her marriages. I have the divorce certificates, or divorce decrees, I guess I should say. I have everything. I even have her original driver's license, which was from like the 70s, I think, or 80s, the 70s, late 70s. Anyway, where was I going with this? So, my mother really prepared me for becoming executor of the estate in the sense that she kept records. She showed me where everything was. She, even though this was a routine surgery, and the surgery actually went great and everything was perfect with that specific surgery, she wanted me to be prepared in case she did pass. And then 14 days later, she ended up passing. But, so I had all of that information with me, or well, stored away in my head. So her best friend from the Eastern Shore stayed with me, and that first night we went through all of the files, we went through all of the mail. I mean, she kept everything. And I made a list of all the different, accounts, the different things that I would have to do in order to pay for the funeral, pay for expenses, pay for, everything. For her, that included her life insurance policy. It also included 2 different retirement accounts from 2 different hospitals that she worked at over 34 years. It included she owned a car, and she still owed on the car, so it included the bank that loan was through. It also included her personal bank account. It included her car insurance, a secondary insurance, which I didn't know what that was, and it ended up being a closed account. Also, she was on Social Security disability benefits. She was disabled for 8 years. Yeah, about 8 years before she passed. So I made a list of all the different places that I needed to contact, all the different companies I needed to contact. Also, going through her mail and sorting through appointment cards and everything. What I did was I separated the junk mail, or the mail that wasn't relevant to her death, into one pile that ended up, being shredded and tossed, from the relevant mail. So like the Social Security, the life insurance, all these different things. Separated the two. That made it a lot easier for me, because then I wasn't stressing about this enormous pile of stuff. That was probably the first thing that I actually did after making this list, was sorting through everything, sorting through the paperwork, figuring out what I needed, and all of that stuff. The next step that I did was the very next day I contacted, actually, the very next day was the day at the funeral home, which was very easy. They do everything for you. This particular funeral home offered an additional package, I guess you could say, or an additional thing that they could do, where they would contact all of the credit bureaus and contact, the government, basically saying that this person is deceased. Please mark that on your record so that no one could use her Social Security number. That was an amazing benefit. I really, really appreciated that. So ask your funeral home or funeral director if they offer that. It was weird, because it was a charge, and you could choose between 4 different packages, one of which was like a framed portrait or something, and the other one was like a necklace that you could put ashes in. I mean, the other 3 things were not nearly as important as that thing. So that was really awesome that they offered that. So definitely check to see if your funeral home offers that. I was smart enough to bring my mother's debit card with me to the funeral home. I don't make very much money. I'm a movie theater manager. I don't have any savings, which is really terrible at my age, and my mom taught me better. She really did. But I was able to use her debit card to pay for the funeral home expenses, or the cremation, and all of, the other taxes and fees and stuff that's involved in that. So definitely be prepared to pay quite a lot, even if it's just a simple cremation and you don't buy, a special urn, and you don't ask for anything special, and you're actually not doing a full funeral. Be prepared, because this was a simple cremation. Her ashes are in just a plain box. I mean, it's a nice box, but it's not like a cardboard box, like a shipping box or anything. But it's not a pricey urn, and we didn't do a funeral there. We're actually having her memorial on this Sunday coming up, and it was $3,700 for everything. So it was really, really expensive, and so just be prepared. So I was smart in that way. I was smart to take her debit card, because my mom was extremely smart with money, and I'm getting there. It's sad, but in her death I learned a lot about, how to handle money more, I guess. So be prepared for that. You know, the next day we picked up ashes, and that day I also spent a lot of time on the phone calling doctors' offices and canceling appointments, letting them know that she had passed, basically updating everyone who she had an appointment with coming up. That way she was not charged any kind of fee for not showing up. You know how doctors' offices are. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to pause you guys for a second because I really have to pee.